to another special CADS podcast. I'm joined tonight by Ross, otherwise known as Spursimpsons over on Blue Sky, and we're going to be talking about so many things. There's a lot to talk about right now. But everybody take a breath and breathe and chill. We have the chat section running as always. If you've got questions you want to send through, please do. Please send them through, and I will be passing them along to Ross as we go. But Ross, how are you today?
I'm all right. I'm all right, Stuart. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. It's been a bit of a day. There's been some stress, but it's kind of got to the end of the day, and I can now chill out. The kids are in bed, and I can think about Spurs because Spurs is a completely stress-free zone, as always.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
An oasis
absolutely.
of
An oasis of calm.
peace and quiet. Oh
Yeah,
God, lovely
delightful,
stuff.
isn't it? So Ross,
You don't know where to
reason
start with a
I've
club like that.
yeah, tell me about it. The reason I've got you in tonight is we were having a chat with Iain and Owen last week, and I was like, we could really do with a third person to come in. And somebody suggested you and said, what about Spursimpsons? I was like, yeah, okay. So I took a look through, and you're so positive. Your stuff is full of brightness and colour and joy, much like your Christmas tree, which is just blinking away in the background. There we go, that one, exactly.
Yes.
And I thought, yep, this is exactly the kind of guy I want to be chatting to on a Tuesday night when it's a bit cold outside. It may snow. And just see where he is. So, Ross, tell us about yourself. Tell us about you and your account and what it is you're trying to do.
So, back in 2021, when Euro 2020 was on, because of COVID, obviously, on the other side, which I'll call Twitter because X just sounds like an adult site. There is a account called Simpsons England, I think. He's really good. I know the guy's a Forest fan, and he started doing it. He started putting up these memes and all that. He'd been going for a while, and I thought this, if I can get my hand on these memes and pictures and access to it, Spurs are made for the Simpsons. It's so easy, and I've got a telepathic kind of mind from the first 10 series. Just watching it growing up in the early 90s and all that, you get it kind of embedded into you. And so I started it, and I'm good friends with Billy T, and he helped me promote the account. And it just kicked off from there, and it was great fun for a while. It was just a lot of things. I just wanted to keep it positive. I'm not one of them negative people. I can't be dealing with that. Of course I get upset. Of course I get, frustrated. You're a Tottenham fan. You have to be. It's in the DNA. But it was just a fun account, and it let me be creative, and it let me get some ideas off my chest. There'll be times I could be at work and I'll have an idea and I'll pop it there, and I might keep it in the drafts. Yes, I do have a complete folder on my phone of ready-made memes if needed, hence why I can be a bit quick sometimes. But yeah, it's just one of them simple ideas. And then I noticed that at the end of the season there was not much for me to do, so I started doing these end of season reviews as well, and that's nice, and I really enjoy doing them. Billy T gives me a hand with previous ones. No doubt he'll give me a hand again for this one. But they're a lot of fun to write, and I just have a lot of pleasure doing it until I left X, which I'll come on to a bit later. But yeah, I love the account. I do. I really do. It's like my little project. Me coming on here, hopefully. I mean, I've been on a few podcasts, I know, but seeing my face now, it takes away the facelessness of it all. But no, I love the account, and I love talking to people. And coming over to Blue Sky, especially in the last month, has been brilliant.
Yes, I think you probably joined Blue Sky before I did. I'm relatively new to it. It's only been about a month and a half, something like that. I've been on there, but basically from the time I started actually posting on there, I just stopped on the other place. I was like, okay, I'm going to commit to one thing. And the other one was just getting so negative, so toxic, and just so impossible to have a conversation with anyone, with back and forth. Yeah. I just felt I needed to be in a place where I could talk things out. and you know, as a Spurs fan, sometimes you need to get it out. Was it a problem shared? Is it a problem halved? So I just
Yeah.
needed to get it out there. So yeah, that was me. That's why I made the move. What's your Twitter X Blue Sky transition story?
Well, the lovely Milo, I'll give him a shout out, bless him. He got me over there back about a year or so ago. It was
Hang on,
invitation only.
hang on. Before we go further, I think we need to say who Milo is and what he does, because that podcast absolutely needs a
Oh,
shout out.
Milo, in my mind, is the king of Blue Sky. He's the OG of
Yeah.
Blue Sky. Now, he, back in the day, well, 2023, he invited me over, and I didn't know he was on a podcast. And we should probably shout out his podcast, otherwise he will get upset. And it is, the game is about
brilliant.
glory. I knew it was something. It is. I listened to it the other day, and it's just to hear people calmly assess the game is great. But Milo, he's got an account obviously on Blue Sky. He invited me over, and I used it now and again on there. Obviously, there wasn't the footfall, and then last month, my boss at work gave me and my son free tickets to the Ipswich game, and I thought that's a free hit. Lovely. We're going to roll them over. Great day for me and my boy. The problem was, and it's good to be able to talk about it now, behind us, there was this one guy who was shouting and swearing. Now, my son is 11, and as a dad, I have to protect him from these things. He hears bad language. I say words as well. But there's one particular word I don't like, and it begins with C, ends in T, and it isn't cart. And he then started shouting, "And you fat, you're just a big fat," and it was the venom, it was the vile of it, and it was just making the whole. I mean, Spurs losing was a horrible experience as it was, but what you have to remember is I'm a dad and at first, and a fan third or fourth. I have to protect him because it's making him feel a bit uncomfortable, which is, I know woke and softness, but I'm a dad. I have to look after him. And I went to the steward. They said, "We can't move you anywhere. Do you want to leave?" And this is at half time. So we left the game, and this guy was just still standing and just shouting every 30 seconds, "You fat, you fat." And it was unbearable. And that's why we left. So I popped a tweet out stupidly. You get a motor, and I was like, "Oh, bloody leaving the game. This guy is saying this, this, and this." We got on the train back, and about an hour later, one of my mates messages me and goes, "You're blowing up." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, your people are really going for you. And I don't know why. It's a harmless tweet. And I had people on there saying my son should be pushed off a bridge, sent to the army. I'm this, I'm that. And it was the straw that broke the camel's back. People saying that about my boy who is, he can't defend himself. He's 11, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And that was it. I just went, sod it. I'm leaving. I mean, I only had it was 8,000 followers. I do wonder how many were bots or Russian bots. But when I started the account, all I wanted was followers. I just wanted followers. And then you get a little bit older and a little bit wise, and you just kind of remember, I don't really care. I just want to interact with people, with good people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care about having thousands and thousands of followers. I don't. I'll do it for myself. And then come over to Blue Sky, and you've got a block button that works and a mute button that works, and everyone's on the level. I mean, people will always get annoyed. People always swear. I'm not one of these very soft people. We all say bad language. I know that, but when it's becoming venomous and it's vile, and you're using that one particular word over and over and over again, it's like a sledgehammer in the back of your head. And I've got an 11-year-old boy who doesn't need to hear that.
Yeah.
And then it was just a horrible, and that was it. Just left, just deleted, deactivated the account, moved over to Blue Sky, and it's good people that have a moan and a groan, and then you can have a decent back and forth. As you quite correctly said, Stuart, you can have an opinion. Somebody could be against it, but you can still be okay afterwards, and that's how it should be. We're all grown ups. But yeah, that's my little story for that. Yeah.
Okay, so do you know what the interesting thing is? It was your
What's that?
tweet and the reaction to it that was the final push for me to go over to Blue Sky. Because
Really?
I saw your tweet, and I was one of the few people on there saying, "No, you can't put up with that rubbish. You got to look after your kid. You've got to be, your kid is number one, right? You've got to look after your
Yeah.
kid. If they're being subjected to that, and the stewards aren't going to do anything about it, then you're left really with one option, and you did the right thing.
Mm.
And I got jumped all over, and you were getting, people can jump all over me, it's fine, but you were getting jumped all over, and people were having to go at your kid, and there was some pretty nasty stuff being said, and I was like, I really don't want to be involved in this community anymore. And I already had the Blue Sky account set up because somebody said you should go and check it out. I've got a tribal account as well, which I do not touch at all. But I went over onto Blue Sky, and suddenly, people were talking about different things, and it was much happier. There was less toxicity.
Yeah.
And I think you came on there and you posted about the same thing, and there was just such a different set of responses, like so much more mature, so much more grown up. And I was like, yeah, it just final nail in the coffin. It was like, okay,
Yeah.
this is where people are
really
normal and just sensible with each other. This is a place for me. So yeah, that was it for me. That was the last time I posted on Twitter, I think.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. Yeah, it was a weird day. It was a hard day to deal with.
No, I should be thanking you. What are you on about? It was your post that got me onto this better place. So
I'm
thanking you.
It was. Welcome. Yeah, because I did put I don't know. It's not I put a post up on Blue Sky, and it had the two reactions. And on one side was people telling me to, push my son off a bridge from Twitter, and then you got the other side with the same message, and people going, "Is your boy all right?" And you kind of think that's where it is. That's where, I mean, I'm 42 now. I do not need people like that. I went to school. I left school 24 years ago. I don't need to be in a playground again. And I just come over, and it's a lot easier. It's a lot less. Look at me, look at me, look at me. It's just easy to choose. It's like the olden days of Twitter where you didn't have so many idiots on there. And there is one account on Twitter, and if it ever comes over to Blue Sky, I will just block it. But I'm not going to name that. It's not pointless. But he drummed up a lot of hate for me, and that was just, a few people know who he is, but if he ever does come over, I'll ruin him. But that's for another day. And it's just such a stupid thing to get wound up about. But no, you're welcome. You're welcome. I've got you over there then.
One of the things I really do like about Blue Sky is the block function. It is proper nuclear. Like, you block them, they can no longer see your tweets. They can't find them. They don't. If they reply to you, if they had already replied to you, your reply is taken off your skeet, I believe they're called. So it's just a wonderful tool to use. I mean, I use it fairly rarely, but certain people will come on and I'm like, immediately block that person. Normally I will give people a chance. If there's a guy who I actually blocked today, but he made a few comments, and I went back and I looked at his previous comments, and I was like, okay, this seemed to be a one-off. And then there was another one popped up today from the same guy, and I was like, yeah, this guy's showing up too much and just a little bit too negative, and I don't need that in my life. So I'm sorry, bud, but let's just move on without each other from now on.
Yeah, and I mean, people hear this and think it's a big deal, but it isn't. I generally just go, I can't be bothered with you, mate, and block, and that's it. And then I've parked it, and then sometimes I'll post something, and just park it there. And some people, I haven't had it on Blue Sky, obviously, and some people get irate, and then you get the fans from other clubs jumping in, and it's, for God's sake, Spursy and all that. But I just, half the time, you can have so much of a thick skin, but just make your own life easier. It's not, this social media thing is not there to be taken too seriously. Just park them, block them. And it's not a big deal. It's not being woke or soft. It's just, I've got way too much more important things to do with some idiot who's telling me how to support my club or telling me who I should be voting for and all that. Go away. Don't need you. And they don't need me. So, you're completely right with that.
And that's someone just probably an 18-year-old kid who's been following the club since, I don't know, Harry Kane came in and suddenly looks great. Which, to be fair, it's still a bit of time, but yeah.
It's a lie. It's a lie, children.
Yeah. They've been following us since we got into the Champions League final, and they thought this is the way forward. No, it was not.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine we were there once.
Oh, my boy was 6 when that happened, which is so he's grown up with that. He's actually, I think I've taught him enough. He's seen the stress lines, which brings me on to, I suppose, as you said, you wanted to know how I got into Spurs. Daniel Levy just sent me a load of money and said, "Please, no." Back in when I was about 6 or 7.
Fine transfer.
When I was about 6 or 7, so late 80s. My mum worked in a Bernardo. She was like a manager there, and she'd come home and bring a few kits for me and all that. One was Liverpool, one was Watford. And my brother, who's a few years older than me, went, "No, you're a Spurs fan." And I was like, "Okay." And then my dad, because my dad, even though he came from Norwich, was a massive Jimmy Greaves fan. So he didn't, love Tottenham, the way they played and winning the league and all that in '61. And my brother loved Glenn Hoddle. But my hero was obviously Paul Gascoigne, and I'll die for that man. Watching him in Italia '90, which is the first World Cup I can remember at 8, it was this big shiny white kit in this wonderful country at the time, who had all the great players, your Klinsmans, Van Bastens, Hullits, and all these players. But he was doing things to this hot Dutch team. And I was just absolutely transfixed by this one guy. And then he started crying in the semi-final. I was like, wow, what a guy. He's so brave and he's so heroic. When you're 8, anyone could be a hero. And then I found out he played for Tottenham as well. And I was like, wow, that's who my brother and my dad support. That's great. I can support a club who's got Paul Gascoigne in it. And that's brilliant. And then, we won the FA Cup, and stupidly I thought we win things as well. That's great. We win a trophy. It's just like, oh, God. And then that's where it started from. It was just the association with the England team of the 1990 World Cup, Lineker as well, but it was always Gascoigne. Mm-hmm. His skill, his determination, his strength, his passing. And to me, he was just, wow. I know he's done so many stupid things off the pitch, and I wish he didn't. But he'll always be that great footballer who got me so interested in football and loved Tottenham from there on in. So I don't know whether to thank him or punch him for that. But it was because all my mates were Arsenal fans at the time. And I was kind of an anomaly at my school. I was the Spurs fan. But it was all right then. And it was just, that's what got me into Tottenham. It was just this one guy who could do magic. I remember the run to the 91 FA Cup final. If my memory serves me right, somebody can correct me, but I think we played Oxford or something like that. They played in a red kit. It wasn't Arsenal. And Gaza had a hernia operation, I think, about a week before this game. And he came back early and won the game for us. And it's just, and you're like, wow, he's had surgery. Because at 8 or 9, you think surgery, they obviously took a leg off or an arm off. And he's come back and grown another leg. And it's just, to me, he was just this massive hero that led this Tottenham. And then the semi-final, we all know what happened there. The Barry Davies commentary. I love that. I love that man. I love Barry Davies as well, but that's another day. And then you have his injury in the final. And then, for some reason, they wanted to hide his face from the camera, but they put a pillow over his face. And I thought he died. I'm in tears. I'm this 8-year-old boy who thinks his hero has died on a football pitch. And then I got so upset. I stormed out the room. I went to play sensible soccer, and I said, I'm going to be a white team.
Ooh,
I'm
now
going to
we're
play a red
talking.
team. And I'm going to beat the red team because obviously Forest were playing in red that day. And I said, I hate Stuart Pearce because he scored against us. And I was just like, I was in such a strop. And then my dad came running in. And I was like, what's up? What's up? And he said, Paul Stewart scored. And I was like, wow. I was like, we've scored. Who's Paul Stewart? Just like, and then, sorry, Paul. And then we got the winner with Des Walker's own goal. At first I thought Gary Mabbutt's won it. He's hit, my mum likes Gary Mabbott, and it's like great.
Everybody's
And
mum
that
loved
was
Gary
it.
Mabbott.
Yeah, everyone's mum loved Gary Mabbott. He was a mum's favourite. And that was it. People like Justin Edinburgh, Eric Tortsfed, Sideways Samways, and David Howes, Steve Sedgley, they're like heroes for me. Naeem as well, more so in '94 when he did what he did to Arsenal. But that was it. That was the birth of my Tottenham love. That FA Cup run, and then the kits that followed the next season. It is a bit age biased because you remember your first kits, but I got all three. I was very lucky. I got the home kit, and at 9 or 10, you're allowed to be a full kit, so and so. But my favourite one was the blue one. It had the lines going down the top, and it spelt Spurs out. But I love that kit. I just can't get my hands on it these days. I might have to raid something. I loved that kit. And then you had the yellow one with the bird poo on the shoulder. And that was good days. We were absolutely rubbish. Then
that head, that kit. That's a kit that would never die. It kept coming back. The yellow one with the splotch on like so many seasons it kept coming. We're re-releasing the yellow kit with the iconic, and I'm like, it's not iconic, it's rubbish.
Well, it's got so bad it came cool again. I love that kit, but I think it's because of when it was. Even though Gaza had signed for Lazio, so I hated Lazio. Lineker had gone to Grand Passate with his bad toe, but we'd had Teddy Sheringham and Darren Anderton, so I was all right. Teddy Sheringham, man, a great player. And that was my Tottenham journey. And then obviously I've poisoned the club because we've had 2 trophies since. And as my elder brother keeps telling me, it's all my fault, obviously, because I decided that this was it. It wasn't going to be John Barnes at Liverpool or whoever. I can't remember the players anywhere else, but it was going to be Tottenham. So it's all my fault. If you want someone to blame,
you must have had 4 trophies. You must have had 4 trophies: 91 FA Cup final, 99 League Cup. Then you got the 2 League Cups in the 2000s. So
we've only had 1 League Cup in the 2000s.
Alan Nielsen against Leicester.
99.
Yeah. Was that 99?
Yeah,
okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Just sneaking in there.
That's right. Yeah. And then 2008. That's it. And the Audi Cup. I mean.
And the Audi Cup.
Technically, I was alive for the UEFA Cup win. I was 3, I think. So there's no way I'm remembering that. And the 1982 FA Cup win was 2 months before I was born. So it is me. It is all down to me, Everything wrong with the club is down to me. But my son has to suffer now. My dad suffered. My brother suffered. I suffered. He has to suffer now.
Yeah, my now 8-year-old, his first sentence was "Come on, you Spurs." Which I thought, I've got this licked. It's sorted right from the start. I think he's been trying to walk that back ever since. I was like, no, you said you're a Spurs fan. You're a Spurs fan for life now. But can't I change? No, you cannot. That's just not allowed.
Trying to explain that. Yeah. I don't know what's worse, the Santa talk or the Spurs talk. I've had both with my boy. I think the Spurs one was worse. But no, it's fine. I love my club. They hurt me. I hurt them. But I love my club. I really do. And I wouldn't, in a weird way, I wouldn't change it for a bit. I would change it for some trophies. And maybe if Man City get done for the 150, we can get that League Cup. Come on, Ryan Mason. Lift that trophy, boy. But it's brilliant. They're nuts. It's chaotic. It's messy. It's never the same. But it's change it. I wouldn't
It's
change.
never
I mean, that
boring.
run, no, and that night in 2019 when we did Ajax, I mean,
Oh, so
I
good.
had headphones that night that was connected into my laptop, and I was watching it on this laptop. Moira scored, and I forgot it was connected. I jumped up, and my laptop has gone.
Skidded off with you.
Oh god! And it landed on the sofa, luckily, but it almost lost it, and I was just going nuts, and my dogs were barking and everything. It's just 37-year-old man just running around like an absolute loon, screaming out Lucas Moira's name and worried that Glenn Hoddle was going to have a heart attack. God bless him. But yeah, my Tottenham, I would never change him for the world.
So on the Ajax night, I was in Paris with a few mates watching the game, and my mates were like, "Oh, we've gone another goal down. We're never going." It's like, "There's still time. There's still." I'm like, I'm that rabid Spurs fan who's like, "There's only 5 minutes left, but there's still time for everything to turn around." And amazingly, it did. But the next day, I could barely talk. I screamed myself completely hoarse. It was mental. What an evening!
It was
what
weird.
a night! It was fantastic.
Oh, I still now and again.
And if only the Champions League campaign could have stopped there, it was perfect.
we would have happily shared the trophy with Liverpool. Happily, the comeback Kings trophy. Leave it there. You're never going to beat them semi-finals. But yeah, that's when I always think that's when it stopped with Poch. I know I'm jumping. I know we've skipped a lot of Tottenham, but I always think that's
this is the way we do things on the
peaked.
CADS podcast. It's a verbal flow of whatever we want to talk about. So don't worry. I didn't give you a rundown, so we just play with it.
So that night, that was it. The team had peaked, and that was, if you think about it, that's 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
And the only remnants of that team, I think, is Ben Davies and Son. I think that's the only players left because obviously Skip went in the summer and he was only a squad player. But that's it. And it's taken that long to turn it around. And in between, people look back at Pochettino fondly. He took over a mess. Who did he take over from? Was it AVB? Or no, it was Sherwood, wasn't it? So he had to deal with that mess. And
Sherwood?
Yeah, I think so. If I remember rightly, Sherwood went, and I don't know, was it Harry? No, it wasn't Harry. No, it's definitely Tim Sherwood. That was it. Because of all the Adebayor stuff and all that. And the
so
team
it was
that Poch,
then Tim Sherwood.
that's it.
He was until May 2014. So basically, Mauricio Pochettino came in and had the summer to get kind of set up.
Yeah, and there was a lot of and he was close to being in the position that Ange finds himself. And there was that big game against Villa where Kane scored that deflected free kick and thought he could take free kicks from them. And it turned us around. We got very lucky with players, having Danny Rose, Vertonghen, Lloris, Alderweireld, Walker, so forth. But coming towards the end, Poch had run out of gas. The team had really ran itself into the ground. And that night in Ajax, it just felt like it drained all the energy, it just took the last essence of any kind of, I suppose, you don't want to get too deep in these things, but it just took that last kind of oomph out of everything, it felt like, because Poch just changed a little bit for some reason. Over the summer, we lost the Champions League final, which would hurt any club, but because it was our first ever, he changed. And then we had that nonsense with Amazon Prime, where they did the all or nothing. And then obviously Jose came in, and I tried my best to like him. I really did, but he just makes himself so unlikable. And he just relied on Son and Kane to score a load of goals, and then, but that's not going to work. And then when Nuno came in, I thought that was weird. Really weird. That was such a kind of okay. We'll get behind him. I'm one of them. But I'll try and get behind him, and then he went. And then Conte. When Conte came in, I generally thought this is it. We're going to win something. It doesn't matter if I like the guy or not. I know he's ex-Chelsea. We seem to be going down that route, but we are going to win something under it. But he then changed because he just didn't want to be there after the second season. I think that was quite obvious. Whatever he was promised in the summer, it just didn't feel like he wanted to be there. And in between all this, you've got 4 different managers' philosophies. You've got poor old Ryan Mason have to come in, stitch it together. And now when Ange took over last season, you've got a hybrid of 4 different squads almost. Poch, I suppose 3 because Nuno was, he sneezed and he'd gone. So 3, I'll be kind.
5-minute Nuno.
Poch, Poch's which had run out of gas. Jose's which was, I don't know what it was. And Conte's which his rigid formation is not what we want to see. And, it's too quick fix. We don't need that. We need what's happening now almost, not the losses. I don't want us to lose. But you have to remember that when you go into a club and you've got different personalities of squads, you've got a mashup of all this, to kind of have the overturn of players that we've had, especially in the summer, was mental. When you look back and you think how many left, what Ange just had to do is not just replace the big players, but he's had to replace the squad players. Like Winks and Skip, Royale. Who else? Yeah, and then who else? I mean, Kane leaving was always going to happen once Gary Neville got his evil golf clubs into him. But I thought he would go to City, but thankfully Bayern came in and he's cursed them as well. But just losing all these players, you have to remember that it's not like Football Manager, which I play a lot, and EAFC, which my son plays a lot. It's not like you can go out and get 20 players and then, you throw them together. They have to be the right players. And this is what Ange is going to do. And that's why we've got to stick with him. His football philosophy is mental, but I love it. It's just, right, we're 2-0 up. Right, it needs to be 4. We're 4-0 down. Right, we'll try and get 5. There's 3 minutes left. Right, we'll try and get 6. I love that. And I love that. And I hope he doesn't change. And he shouldn't change. He shouldn't have to change for anyone. But what we've got to remember is we were at ground zero last year in the summer. And we're not going to be building scaffold. We're not going to be building high, big story towers at the minute. We're still doing the groundwork. We brought in some kids, which helps us for the future in Gray, Bergval. We've got Mikey Moore,
Yang,
hopefully Alfie Dorrington, Phillips, Vuskovic, and players like this who may or may not work out. But that's what happens with youngsters. Some work out, some don't. I watched a video the other day on Freddie Adu. Do you remember him? The American lad who was going to be the next Pele.
15-year-old phenom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, God. And he absolutely fell flat. So hit and miss with youngsters. The squad players that we've got, not all transfers are going to work out. I thought Bissouma was going to midfield, but he's struggling. Bentancur needed to shut his mouth and then he'd be fine. Romero wanted to come back quickly. I mean, it's a different injury, but and then we've got Mickey van der Ven and his blooming hamstrings, God bless him. It's just, at the minute, we're just unlucky. I mean, you can't feel sorry for us all the time, I understand, but it is what it is. It's not an excuse, it's facts. It's facts that we have a depleted squad. We are beyond bare bones. It's like a skeleton of a skeleton at the minute, and we're just trying to patch it all together. But it will get better. It will get better. Give him this window. January's a big window. Do we get a striker in because Richie's made of biscuits? Do we get a winger in because poor old Odebert hasn't got a thigh? Do we we need another defender in? We also need another left back. We're not going to get all them players in January. Which clubs want to sell in January? Not many. We were lucky last season. Was it 22 we got Bentancur and Decky? But that's because Paratici has his fingers in a lot of pies. some
And
dodgy,
Juve
but I
wanted rid
love
of him.
that
They
guy.
wanted to get some money in to make more purchases. So they needed the money
Yeah,
at the time.
Juve are really struggling.
Yeah.
It's a tight league also this season. It's a very peculiar league. It doesn't feel like it's settled down. I don't know what you feel, but
It's so
it feels
we were
like
talking
it's
about this
still,
last night.
yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about this last night. It's such an inconsistent league. There's two, as far as I'm concerned, there are two clubs that are consistent, and they're the two at the top. Manchester City, Manchester United, Arsenal even. You know, everybody below Chelsea and Liverpool are dropping points in games they shouldn't be dropping. And we're as guilty of that as anybody, which is why we're down currently in 11th, which is nasty and horrible to look at. I don't like scrolling down, but you have to sometimes. Yeah, but it's been good to because so many of things you say I thoroughly agree, and I've been like banging that drum for a long time. My feeling on Poch is slightly different. I think he needed to be given an opportunity to basically clear out the squad and rebuild again, because he'd done it once. He needed to have that time to do it, and I think that would have given him the impetus again. But it was a judgment call. But at the time, when we brought in Mourinho, I was like, this is a bad move, and I was all for Nagelsmann at the time. And honestly, just bringing in Mourinho just killed any impetus we had at the time. As you said, Nuno was there for 5 minutes, and he was basically just there as a figurehead because we couldn't get Conte the first time of asking. And then he left, and we brought Conte in, and he'd missed his summer, and he didn't want the players that he had, and then he wasn't happy with the players that we bought later on either, and he just wanted out of the club, and he was grumpy as hell. As far as I was concerned, the best manager we had in that period between Pochettino and Postecoglou was Ryan Mason. So at least he sent out a team to try and play the Tottenham Hotspur way and give us a little bit of pride back in the side.
Why do you think it didn't work? Why didn't it work with Mourinho? Because technically, he goes into a place, wins them a trophy, and then ruins them. But he kind of skipped that middle bit. I know he could have won the League Cup and all that, but it just felt like he had to go. But I can't put my maybe it's just time and COVID and all that has kind of erased it, thank God. But why do you think he just didn't? Why do you think it didn't work?
He came out of Man United, not the same manager he joined the club. He was very, very negative, and everything was about, like, we're not going to concede goals, and it was effectively relying on Sonny and Kane to get us out of trouble.
Yeah.
You score goals, you win us the games, and the rest of us will try and not make any mistakes. And you look at what he's done since leaving. Yes, he's won a cup with Roma, but that was in Italy, and he got, bundled out of there fairly quick sharp as well, because he screwed that job up as well. He screwed up every job he's had since leaving Man U, and he was doing a good job of screwing up Man U when he left there as well. So, I didn't feel confident that he was going to do us any favours. He was such a negative guy. I was all for us getting Mourinho, the Porto manager, but when it was Mourinho, the ex-Chelsea, ex-Manchester United, ex-Real Madrid, ex-Inter Milan manager, I was like, this guy is a busted flush. I don't want us to see us playing that kind of football. The Porto football was flash and exciting. They had some verve about them. Even the Chelsea stuff, they actually went out to go and win games. At Spurs, it was, try not to lose. And when you watch the Amazon Prime documentary, like so many times he said, he was concentrating on mistakes, errors being made in defence, not where we could have punished other teams, where we could do things. It was always focusing on the negative. And I mean, I'm going to make a confession here. My dad's a therapist. And my dad as a therapist will tell you, if you concentrate on the negative all the time, you're just going to get more negative. So that's what we got. Yeah. And I think that's what we got with Conte as well, because they're very similar.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a Mourinho fan. I've always been a Barcelona fan since '92. When, I don't know if you remember, when they played at Wembley in the European Cup final for kids watching. It used to be called the European Cup final. And they were called the Dream Team, and they were playing Sampdoria. And Ronald Koeman scored that winner. and it was like they're called the Dream Team. Wow, why? Okay, who's he?
It must be
What's
good.
a Stoich? You know, and all these players, but they were a quality team, and it was like Pep was, one of the players there as well. So I fell in love with that club since then. And I was very anti Mourinho when he went to Madrid. But yeah, it always felt like with Mourinho that I was always concerned the minute he would just turn on the club. And it was always going to happen. You always felt like it was going to happen because that's what he does.
Yeah.
But it would just, yeah. I was just playing devil's advocate, asking you. It's just interesting to get somebody else's viewpoint without it being too venomous, because it can easily. But when Conte joined, I was again, you try and back the manager. There's no point just sitting there all the time going, "Oh God, we've gone down the same route." But even that felt after a couple of months, because he only signed a 1 year. No, he signed a 2 year deal, but it had like a break clause, I think, in the middle of it. That was
18-month contract.
And it was that, yeah, something like that. And you just thought, why would you do that? If you're that invested with the club, why would you do that? And he's looking after his own interests. I mean, now he's at Napoli, and I think they're top of the league. I don't really care. And it's just
they're
I don't like them.
They're also
I've got
really
really
with
good...
Atalanta and Inter Milan and other clubs. It's a bit of a shootout in Serie A at the moment. Very, very tight.
It really is. It is a real. It's an absolute bombshell of what it used to be like in that league, especially in the 90s with the Channel 4 coverage. But now we've got Ange, and it's this guy that you can relate to. He'll say what he says, and he comes out and he says, "Look, I play like this, and I don't really care what you think, and that's fine. Keep going, mate." But he doesn't badmouth the club. He doesn't. I hated that video from the Bournemouth game. I don't want to talk about it too much, but it reminded me of that occasion I had at the Ipswich game with my boy. That's exactly what I was hearing for 45 minutes. But that video of that guy calling him a so-and-so, it's just horrible. It was, and what's that going to do? What is that going to do? I know it's all happy clappy, but you've got either support the club or just stay silent then, because all this talk of protests, Daniel Levy has not changed in the last 20 years. Just because a couple of you have gone outside and just booed him, he's not going to change. He's so stubborn, that man. He won't change. But he does love the club in a very peculiar way. He does love the club because he's a fan. But that's almost gone against him because he has he doesn't want to see the club go down a Leeds United route or a QPR or anything like that, where the club just implodes on itself. So that's where I think he's coming from. He does need to loosen up. And it's interesting. I mean, did you read what Romero said about the board?
Yeah, that was how we started the podcast yesterday. Because it came out right before.
It was. Oh, right. Yeah, that's beautiful timing. I like that. I like it when the players challenge him, because Romero's a World Cup winner. He's got a bit of, and he's two-time Copa America winner. He's got something to back himself up with. Messi called him the best defender in the world and all that. And when you've got that kind of almost pedigree, to go to Levy and say, "Hang on a minute, mate, come on," because it rocks back to even Alan Sugar's time. Teddy Sheringham went up to him and said, before he joined Man U, he said, "Look, sign this player, this player, and this player. I reckon we could win the league." Sugar said no. Teddy had enough, and he went to United. I don't think it would have happened under Kane. I don't think Kane is that type of person that would actually just go to someone like a Levy and go, "Right, you've got to sign this player, or I'm off." But we've missed out on signings. I remember Charlie Eccleshare's done a piece, I think, on The Athletic years ago. The Rivaldo one, Dybala, tons of players that we've missed out on in time. Yeah. But every club has that. Every club. You could tell me a big club, and they've missed out on signings. I mean, even Man City missed out on Kaká. But it happens. It happens. And that's why I don't get myself too wound up about it. I mean, it would have been lovely back in the day to have signed, your Rivaldo, just for a couple of seasons. He wrote a really nice letter, apparently, apologising for not joining us. Join us then, mate. But it's okay. This, as I said, this club will probably be the death of me, but what a way to go. Tottenham Hotspur. But I don't think.
I say
as I said,
till
protest.
I die, because that's probably how we're going to go.
Yeah, Tottenham. Yeah, it will be Tottenham when I die. It's not that serious. Chelsea. Somebody said to me at work last week, yeah, but Chelsea are doing really well. Are they? All they did was it's like if you get a load of ingredients, throw it against the wall, couple will work, and that's what they've done. They've spent what, $1 billion under Bowley, and it's just like, oh wow, that work did it. Yeah, well done, mate.
You go out and get.
I could do that.
A very, admittedly, Maresca's a very good coach, but if you combine a very good coach with a group of very expensive players, there's a good chance you're going to end up with a reasonably good team. Frankly, I think they got lucky with certain players like Cole Palmer, but you know, it could have gone the other way. But the thing is, you look at the amount of money they've been able to draw back, it's nowhere near the money they've spent. I mean, the BBC have an article today on their website talking about how much money's been spent, how much the net spend is. Spurs have lost money the last 4 seasons. We've spent something like the 5th highest amount in the Premier League on transfers.
Yeah.
It's wages.
I suppose that
we're still spending a lot on wages as well, but it's wages where we are significantly behind some of the other sides.
Yeah, I still think that's where it is. I think a lot of people will see a transfer fee, but as time has gone on, it is about, as you said, quite rightly, wages. That's why so many people went to Saudi Arabia. That's why Henderson went. That's why Ivan Toney's gone. Because no English club wanted him, but why? You know, I mean, there are players out there like, do you remember that Brazilian player Hulk? Great player, but he never played for a big club, apart from Porto, maybe. But he chased the money. That's what he did. That's what happens with players. They get to a certain point in their life and they think, well, I need to be rewarded. Levy should really... It would be nice to see us go on a massive splurge, but a calculated one. I mean, we can't do what Chelsea did because I think it would affect us a lot and it wouldn't be right for us and it wouldn't feel right anyway. But maybe try... And we don't know. They may have tried to go for Cole Palmer when he left Man City. We don't know. But, you know, players like Mbeumo at Brentford, I'd love to see him at Tottenham. I think he's a great player. Who else would I like? You know, Kvaratskhelia, the Georgian who's at Napoli. I'd love to see him. There's loads of players I'd like to see. I mean, if we could nip Arda Güler on loan from Madrid because he's not getting much game time. Endrick said that he's not going to leave, so that's fine. But there's loads of players out there. I mean, Frankie de Jong at Barcelona, he's not really getting much game time since his injury, and Gavi's come back. But there are players out there I would love us to see just, you know, go for. But whether it fits Postecoglou's pedigree, that's down to him. And that's fine with me. We've been unlucky as well with injuries. I mean, look, Odegaard looked fantastic, I thought, before his injury. And then it got worse. And even Richarlison, when he's played, he's ran his nuts off. But he was playing with an injury for more than half a season, the idiot. And it just seems to have affected his body a lot since then. Not all our signings have been terrible. There's been some, I mean, Ndombele, Lo Celso, and poor old Ryan Sessegnon, who is Ali Gold said his hamstrings were just made of plywood and they just kept snapping, bless him. And I hope he finds himself a decent time at Fulham. I do. We've just been unlucky. And that's what happens with transfers. Some will hit, some won't hit. And even the best clubs, I mean, you look at Man City, their recent transfers has been okay.
Quiet.
I mean, Núñez hasn't really done much. Grealish, he helped them win the treble. What's he done since? Doku's hit and miss. Gvardiol's been all right, but he seemed like a player that you could rely on anyway. Calvin Phillips was an absolute stinker. So it's not just us. I know we should just focus on Tottenham, but I mean, Man United's transfer record has been horrendous since Fergie left. So not every club gets it right 100% of the time. So I don't know what this is. One question I would love to ask you, Stu, if you don't mind. I know it's your show, but there's this. Where do you think some fans, not a lot of fans, but small minorities, what's the word, entitlement comes from? Because they think that we should be doing this. Why? I'd love to have that answer.
I think it comes from the social media age. We are a little bit older. We remember getting our news from the newspapers, and we'd hear about Jurgen Klinsmann signing on the back of the Sun or something. If it was nowadays, it would be all over X and Blue Sky and Facebook, and it would have been talked about on various fan pages for weeks before. It probably wouldn't have been that much of a surprise. The last time I can remember being surprised by a signing was when Modric signed for us, and I was like, "Well, bloody hell, that's not a bad player to get." But now everything is talked about so far, and I'm guilty of this. I mean, I'm part of a podcast where we talk about football and we look forward and we talk about players that we could be signing, and you could be looking 6 months ahead. We were talking about, who are we going to get in January after the summer transfer window closed? So, I'm as guilty as anyone. But there's so much information out there now that everybody is an expert on players, and if you're on Football Manager or EAFC, I'm also on Football Manager. We also get the chance to find out about these fictional players with their fictional numbers. Okay, they've got the same name, but they're not really the same guy, are they? And we think, this guy would be great for Tottenham. This guy would be fantastic. He's exactly what such and such a club needs, or he's the perfect manager for there. And people feel entitled because they're used to being. They feel like they're being heard when they put their message out on Twitter, and their friends or their little social circle comes back and gives them validation. So, entitlement plus validation ends up with a fairly toxic environment. And it's just a negative spiral of people going, I think this should happen. And then somebody else drops on, I agree with you. You're absolutely right. We were talking earlier. There was a guy on the chat yesterday who started out okay. And it very quickly went fairly off colour and ended up screaming about Daniel Levy and how he was the worst thing that ever happened to this club. You may not like Daniel Levy, but you can't call him the worst thing that ever happened to the club. I mean, for me, he's better than Irving Scholar.
Really can't, no.
He's better than Sugar. He's taken this club from effectively also Rans to having the best stadium, the best training centre. We've got more things coming along which are going to add even more money to the club, and which, whether all of that gets put back into the club is yet to be determined. But we're seeing more money going to the club. Certainly.
Yeah, we are.
But I think people feel more entitled to have their say, and I also think people don't educate themselves enough. You just look on social media now, people are saying Daniel Levy should be sacked. Well, who's going to sack Daniel Levy? Daniel Levy owns something like 27 to 29% of ENIC, and he gets a large say in what happens. He's not going to sack himself, is he? Who do I think should be the chairman? We should get rid of the guy. Oh, no, that's me. I mean, he's not going to do that.
It reminds me of that. I don't know if...
Do you remember last season?
You're going to say Lee Evans? Oh, right.
No, do you remember last season when we played Man City, and people were saying that we should deliberately lose the game to give Man City the best possible chance of winning the league. And His answer was, if you want to stop a club winning a competition, go and win the competition yourself. Right? I have to agree with that. But the same thing is, if somebody wants to stop Daniel Levy being the manager, or the chairman, then they need to come and buy the club themselves, because he ain't just going to give it up for nothing. He ain't going to quit.
No.
The man's not going to walk away from the job. He's going to want to get paid.
There was like a 30-minute, not a documentary thing on Sky Sports last season when it was all going great, and we got our Tottenham back apparently, and you can just see the pride he takes in the stadium. He looks out on where the is it the South Stand, the big one, and he looks out and he says, "We're going to do this. We're going to redevelop this. You know, this is not just about Tottenham; it's about the area." And he does love the club, as you said. He makes bad decisions. Everyone makes bad decisions. His are just on a bigger scale. He shouldn't have sacked Yole at halftime. No. I still remember that. He
shouldn't have flirted with
should
Salford.
never. God, yeah. Thank God we never got that ground. I know he wanted to demolish it though, thankfully, but thank God he didn't move us. He has helped us get a wonderful stadium. It is wonderful. He just makes, but for every good decision, you're probably going to get one or two bad ones. You know, hiking the prices up of the tickets, the over 65 thing that he's done. It's just like, oh, mate, come on.
Yeah, that's another one in the negative column for me.
Yeah, no, it's just like, seriously, Daniel. His haggling, you know, on transfers. I mean, thank God, and hopefully Scott Money's coming in and just said, "Look, just sit down, Daniel. Let me deal with this." That's what needed to happen. It just somebody's to come and go, just sit over there. That's why I like Paratici so much. He seemed to kind of come and go, "No, I'm doing it. I've got this player. Get him in now," and it happened. But with Daniel, I have nothing harsh against him. You can't, as you quite rightly said, people have very short memories. Back in the 2000s, we were rubbish. We were mid-table fodder, and you know, until Martin Jol came in, that's when we started climbing the league a little bit more. And then Harry Redknapp got us into Europe, and then Pochettino almost got us a few. You know, he almost got us a league title, almost got us a Champions League. These things take time. I mean, that's probably 12 years of development. We were rubbish in the 90s and 2000s. If you looked at our average league position before ENIC took over, because for a while, I know Daniel was there, but it was somebody else who was doing it all, and I've forgotten his name. But we were rubbish. We would go into games and go, oh, well, we've lost against Man U and Arsenal, and who else were big then? Liverpool, and all these clubs would absolutely annihilate us. And we would, you know, there was one season in the 90s where Vinny Samway scored against Oldham because my brother went to the game. It was all the way in Oldham, and that kept us up in the Premier League. There was still a couple of games to go, but that's how bad it was. We were docked points in the 90s.
There was a game against Coventry. I remember there's a game against Coventry, and it was like, well, the side that loses this is probably going down. And we were talking about possibly going down, like in the 90s with under Sugar. So it was not an easy period.
No, it wasn't. I mean, I remember the semi-final against Everton in '94. That was heartbreaking. Was it 94, 95? It was when Klinsmann was there.
No, it was the 94-95 season. Amokachi.
That's it.
Ride out, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It turned into Ronaldo for a day. And then I remember the semi-final in 99 against Newcastle. It might be 98. I can't remember. That was hard to take. And it's always been. And we had a final against Blackburn in the League Cup under Hoddle. And we were rubbish. Yeah. We were really good up until that point. And then Andy Cole rolled back the years and destroyed us. But yeah, it's been like that for a while. And as you said, I think a lot of fans have come into this almost era of Kane and Son and Dele, Ericsson and all these wonderful players. And I think it has created a kind of misnomer of, oh, Spurs should be here. We got lumbered in with the big six because of the money we were generating. We didn't get there because of trophies or stature in the game. It's just because we have a high revenue. Because there's that meme that goes around. I don't know if you've seen it. And it says, if the top six weren't there, this team would have won the league. And it's like, well, we would have won the league quite a lot of times if it wasn't for the other five. and they're always kind of they go streets ahead of us. But no, I've got a lot of time for Daniel Levy. Go on.
I think we've been unlucky as well in that during a lot of Daniel Levy's era, there's been the financially doped football clubs. It's been the period of financial doping. You know, starting out with Chelsea and Manchester United just having budgets bigger than anybody else. You know, and Manchester United under Ferguson were just a beast to just steamrolling everyone out of the way. Even going back to Blackburn days, I mean, Blackburn was spending more money than anybody else under Jack Walker. And then you've got Everton, you know, who had a little bit of money for a time. West Ham had a bit of money for a time. You know, there's only... I mean,
even Leeds tried what they did, didn't they?
Yeah, Leeds tried what they did. Leeds was just a mess. I mean. But yeah, now we've got Newcastle and we've got Manchester City and Liverpool have been taken over by American billionaires as well. And, you know, Spurs have not got someone who's going to come in and bankroll us to a league title in the same way. Not going to spend €1 billion or £1 billion on a squad of some players who are not even getting in there. Like, Chelsea have got a squad of 45 players. You can only register 25 of them. It's not going to work.
They sold their club captain to Atletico Madrid. They've more or less banned Ben Chilwell, who I think would be a decent loan signing for us in January as a backup. And you look at they bought in Dewsbury Hall and not played him. They had their, for legal reasons, the interesting signings that they did with Everton. I think it was at Villa, wasn't it, in the summer, where ironically my birthday's on June 29th, which is the day before the whole PSR dealings have to be sorted out, isn't it? It's the 30th of June. And it was like, I spent my birthday going, who have they signed? Why have they signed that? Who have they, what? Who? And you spend that day going,
who have Everton signed?
Well, Newcastle signed that keeper from Forest. I've forgotten his name. He's the Greek lad. For £30 million. He's their third choice keeper. And if that doesn't ring any kind of bells, I mean, come on. But that's how they get away with it. And I don't want us to go down that route. That's what happens when you get massively rich owners. They think they can...
Yeah.
Go on.
The only thing I can think of is all they've done is kick the can a little bit down the road. They can't continue to do that. You know, they can do it once. They might be able to do it twice, but they won't be able to do it a third time because it will catch up with them. You know, they're all going to get hamstrung a little bit by PSR, and that gives us a chance. The thing is, PSR is changing. This summer it's going, instead of being you're allowed to lose 105 million or something over 3 seasons, it's you're allowed to spend up to X% of your turnover as wages. Now we are very, very well placed to take advantage of that because we got rid of a load of wage budget last summer, and if we can make some good moves and sensible moves, other clubs are going to having to chop players out of their squad because they just can't afford to have them in there and pay them the wages because they haven't got the turnover to afford
exactly. And it's, you look at players like Nkunku they bought for a lot of money. Who else is sitting on their bench at the minute and not really getting many games? I can't think of any now, just apart from Nkunku, the poor lad. He's not actually not Dybala.
Chukwuemeka.
Yeah, there's another one they brought in, and I can't think of his name. He's an attacking player. He was there before. He came from Africa. He's Argent. That's it, Jacques. Yeah,
Joao Felix.
Joao Felix can't. He's, you know, what's he done? And he must be on 300k a week. Sorry, we just can't do. We can't. You can't compete with that. We can't do what City did and bring in Grealish for 100 million, and then, you know, occasionally play him. You know, we're not going to do that. We don't want to. Ange's always said he'd rather have 2 50 million pound players than 100 million pound player, which is sensible. I don't see what the issue is with that. And transfer fees are inflated for English players, that English tax. But you have to have a certain amount of homegrown players, so you have to balance the squad. And I do hope, and I know this probably sounds nasty.
Made the moves we did over the summer. If you look at the players we signed last summer, we bought three 18-year-olds. Well, two 18-year-olds, but then we also pre-signed Yang, who's 18. We've got Vuskovic coming in, who's going to be 18. You know, that's 4 players there who are going to qualify as homegrown at club in a few seasons' time, which will be invaluable to us. Odebear was at Burnley when he was 18, so he will qualify as homegrown in nation in a couple of years' time. So this is what we need to do. We need to spend our money sensibly. But as I was saying last night, I think we just didn't go far enough in the summer. We made a lot of good moves. I didn't really argue with any of the purchases that were made. I just don't think we could have pushed a little bit further, made 2 more signings for the first team straight away, a left back, a left winger, and then we would have been right in there. I think we made 1 signing for the first team and the rest were all for the future.
Yeah, I suppose Odegaard was on the periphery, but as you said, he's still young. But we needed but then it's the who. Who do you bring in? And it's so hard when these players say you're playing in in the Bundesliga or La Liga. If Spurs come in for you, great club, not great. It is a great club. Big stadium, great training facilities, but hold on, Saudi Arabia offered me twice as much a week, and that could be tax-free. Hold on, Man City have now whiffed up, PSG have now whiffed up. That's what happens, That's why, the day we signed Odegaard, it was so weird because that came out the blue. You were talking about it earlier with the Modric signing. That's, we missed them days, but it's like, oh, have we? But that was the only one in modern era. But I was like, who? Have we? And I was on the phone, and one of our customers is Burnley Football Club. And I was on the phone to one of the guys there. And this is remarkable. I called my mate up. I was like, I've just spoken to someone at Burnley. They said he's a great lad. He's a unit, and he's going to be brilliant for us. We've signed the next Messi. The signings that we brought in, as you said, they are for the future, and there will be good signings. I think they will come good. And it was... But it's, again, I revert back to the who. It would be lovely to sign all the players that I named earlier. Let's go nick Pedri off Barcelona. Let's go, nick a few players from Bayern Munich. They owe us. Leverkusen aren't having as good a season as last season. Let's go nick some of that. We can't. We don't have that pull yet. But we need to do it in stages. It is a painful rebuild. Poch said it 5 years ago, and it's taken this long to actually start the blooming thing. Because, Mourinho was never going to do that. Conte was never going to do that. And Nuno, as you said, he just came and waved. It's the old Grandpa Simpson meme when he walks in and sees Bart and walks out again. That's how long his tenure was. But it will come good, and it is going to get hard. It's going to get harder. We've got barely any players. We're going to be up against a Rangers team on Thursday who are going to be so raucous. They're going to sense blood and go for it. We're going to come up against a very stubborn Southampton team. They don't want to lose. Just because Tottenham are rolling in, teams don't roll over and die for us. If they were up against Liverpool, there's that sense that, Liverpool overpower them. They don't have to do that against Tottenham. They're going to think that we're there to be taken. That's what Ipswich sensed. And that's what...
They've just got to look at results against Ipswich, Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, and say if you get at them and you make life difficult for them, you can get a win. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But,
we've got a difficult run of games coming up. It's not going to be easy. I'm hoping that we're going to get something on Thursday night against Rangers. Ange Postecoglou has a very good record against Rangers, and I think he's got their number. So even though I think we will be playing a few youngsters, Archie Gray's almost guarantees to be playing left centre back. It's going to be a fun old game. But yeah. Ross, thank you very much for your time this evening. We've had a good long natter. We've gone for over an hour now. So
sorry about that.
I will talk about...
Thank you for having me on, Stu.
We will talk about this off camera, but if you ever want to come back, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks for coming in. And if you are on Blue Sky and if you wish to have a chat, you can look me up. My address is in the chat below. Ross's address is in the chat below, so you can definitely follow him. He's worth a follow. I've been following since my early days on Blue Sky, which ain't really that long, but it's
Bless him.
it is what it is.
Back in the
But I
day.
shall be following him for a long time back in the day. So thank you everybody for being with us. Thanks for sticking around to this late time, and as always,